In the town of Snizhne, located in eastern Ukraine and controlled by pro-Russian separatists, an unusual sight caught the attention of Associated Press journalists. Military convoys frequently passed through, but one vehicle stood out, a Buk M1 missile launcher. The large, imposing piece of weaponry seemed almost out of place. As the convoy came to a brief stop, a soldier with a distinct Russian accent approached the journalist and issued a firm warning. No photographs, no videos. The reporters complied, watching as the missile launcher disappeared down the road. None of them could have predicted that within hours, this very weapon would be at the center of one of modern aviation's worst tragedies. This is the story of Malaysia Airlines Flight MH17, a moment where aviation warfare and human loss intersected in an unforgettable disaster. It was July 17th, 2014. The day began as usual at Amsterdam's Schiphol Airport, bustling with travelers eager to start their journeys. It was the holiday season, and among the passengers were families heading for vacations, business travelers, and a significant group of researchers en route to an AIDS conference in Melbourne, Australia. They checked in, received their boarding passes, and exchanged goodbyes with loved ones before heading toward Gate G3 Flight MH17, a daily service to Kuala Lumpur, carried 283 passengers and 15 crew members. The aircraft, a Boeing 777-200ER, was modern and well-maintained, powered by 2 Rolls-Royce engines. The flight crew included 4 pilots, 2 captains, and 2 first officers, who would rotate duties throughout the long-haul journey. The cabin crew, consisting of 11 members, was dedicated to ensuring a safe and comfortable trip for everyone on board. As the final boarding call was announced, a passenger took a photo of the aircraft at the gate. A simple snapshot that would, in a few hours, become a haunting symbol of an impending disaster. Shortly after noon, the final pre-flight checks were completed. The aircraft was fueled with 46 tons of jet fuel, and with all systems operational, MH17 was ready for departure. The flight plan followed a standard route. Departing Amsterdam, the aircraft would travel southeast over Germany, Poland, and into Ukrainian airspace, where it would ascend to 35,000 feet. The flight was scheduled to take approximately 11.5 hours, crossing over Russia, the Caspian Sea, Iran, Afghanistan, Pakistan, and India before reaching Kuala Lumpur. Despite the carefully planned route, MH17's flight path carried it over a region fraught with escalating tensions. Eastern Ukraine, particularly the Donetsk and Luhansk regions, had been engulfed in armed conflict since April 2014. Pro-Russian separatists and Ukrainian government forces were locked in battle using artillery, aerial strikes, and heavy militarization. Both sides deployed anti-aircraft systems, making the skies increasingly perilous. As the conflict intensified, Ukrainian aircraft became frequent targets. Separatists relied on shoulder-fired missiles, known as man-pads, to down low-flying military aircraft. In June 2014, a Ukrainian reconnaissance plane was shot down near Sloviansk, followed by a transport plane destroyed while landing in Luhansk, killing 49 people. By mid-July, a Ukrainian military transport was shot down at 21,000 feet, far beyond the reach of man-pads, suggesting the presence of more advanced anti-aircraft systems. In response, Ukraine closed its airspace below 32,000 feet. Flights above this altitude were still considered safe under international aviation guidelines. However, many major airlines, including British Airways and Air France, opted to reroute their flights. Malaysia Airlines, along with several others, continued using the route, believing it to be safe. That assumption would soon prove tragically wrong. At 12:13 p.m. local time, MH17 taxied to the runway and took off climbing southeastward. The early part of the flight proceeded smoothly. The crew maintained contact with air traffic control, monitored instruments, and updated weather conditions. Passengers settled into their seats, some watching movies, others sleeping or enjoying their in-flight meals. As the aircraft flew over Poland, it maintained a steady course, entering Ukrainian airspace near Lviv. The flight continued toward Dnipro. At 2:53 p.m., Ukrainian air traffic control requested the flight to ascend to 35,000 feet, but the crew declined, opting to remain at 33,000 feet. likely to avoid turbulence. The request was acknowledged and the flight continued its journey. A few minutes later, MH17 requested a course deviation of 20 nautical miles north to avoid storm clouds. Permission was granted, but the aircraft was instructed to remain at 33,000 feet due to other traffic at higher altitudes. As the plane adjusted its path, it unknowingly entered a danger zone. On the ground, a Boeing missile system had been set up. This sophisticated mobile launcher was capable of detecting and locking onto aircraft. The operators inside, likely separatist forces, were scanning the skies. MH17, a large aircraft with a strong radar signature, was mistakenly identified as a Ukrainian military transport. At 3:23 p.m., a missile was launched. Traveling at Mach 3, the missile reached 33,000 feet within seconds. The warhead detonated near the cockpit, sending a deadly cone of shrapnel through the fuselage. The pilots were killed instantly and the aircraft began disintegrating mid-air. The front section separated and spiraled toward the ground. The sudden decompression in the cabin left passengers unconscious almost immediately. Within moments, the once intact aircraft was reduced to debris, raining down over fields in eastern Ukraine. Residents of the Donetsk region witnessed the wreckage falling from the sky. Some heard a loud explosion, followed by smoke trails and burning debris scattered across a 50-square-kilometer area. Personal belongings, aircraft parts, and human remains lay across the landscape, making it one of the largest crash sites in aviation history. News of the disaster spread rapidly. Malaysia Airlines confirmed that it had lost contact with MH17, as investigators and journalists scrambled to understand what had happened. Separatist forces secured the crash site, limiting access to Ukrainian authorities and international investigators. Concerns grew over potential evidence tampering. An international investigation team, led by the Netherlands and including representatives from Malaysia, Australia, Belgium and Ukraine, was assembled. After months of analysis, the conclusion was clear. MH17 was shot down by a Boeing surface-to-air missile. Metal fragments embedded in the wreckage and the bodies of the crew confirmed the missile's impact. Paint samples from missile debris matched materials found in the aircraft. The Netherlands observed a national day of mourning. A forensic team worked to identify the victims, providing closure to families. By 2017, a memorial was established near Schiphol Airport, featuring 298 trees, one for each victim. In 2020, a criminal trial began in the Netherlands, charging 4 suspects with involvement in the missile launch. Despite these legal proceedings, questions of accountability remain. The tragedy of MH17 reshaped aviation safety. Airlines and governments now collaborate more closely to assess risks over conflict zones. Protocols have been revised to prevent similar disasters. However, for the families of the victims, no amount of policy changes can undo the pain of their loss. The downing of MH17 remains a stark reminder of how warfare can extend far beyond battlefields, claiming the lives of innocent civilians in the skies above.